Welcome back. All right, so I want to talk about a slow start again today. Today I want to talk about Toronto. Now, I really wanted to hit on kind of everything with this. So before we even get into this, I was asked about the All or Nothing series a lot, the mini series, which is on Amazon Prime, and it's about the Toronto Maple Leafs and last season. And it was a very revealing documentary setup. Now, the one question you have is how much of this is because of cameras on them? How much of what gets said you go, it might be because of cameras on them. And you do have those moments during that series. But in general, it was a very open, very honest series. It was very well done. It showed why they brought in Joe Thornton, what they thought Joe Thornton would be able to do. It showed the switch from Freddie Anderson to Jack Campbell and how popular Campbell was with his teammates, which is, I think, part of the reason why fans love Campbell right now. I don't think there was anything in that mini series to make you dislike Jack Campbell at all on any level. But changes have been made. Changes have been made by the Toronto Maple Leafs. They were not able to keep Zach Hyman. And when you look at how that mini series ends, and of course it ends on the down note, spoiler alert, that they don't win round one, they don't beat Montreal. And you could see how quickly things would change. What I found remarkable was the Leafs could be up, they could be ahead, and as soon as anything went wrong at all, whether it was a hit in the corner they didn't like or whether it was a goal against, you could just see the body language change, and it to me it felt like they were going, "Well, there you go, we're gonna lose," and you could be watching it going, "You guys are ahead. Why is the assumption that you're gonna lose?" And again, there's editing to be considered, and there's the narrative, right? But it sure looked that way from the way that things were edited together, and then you look at the start they've gotten off to this year, and I can't say that they're still carrying around any of that, but this is a team that's definitely having its struggles. Mitch Marner was destroyed at the end of that miniseries. Marner put everything on his back. He felt he was personally responsible for the team losing. And then you've got Sheldon Keefe, who gave them this really great, resounding speech. But as was stated on Hockey Night in Canada, it felt like that might have been at the wrong time. Where this is it, this is the time before overtime when they're already feeling that stress and feeling that pressure, might have been the wrong time. And I'm not one that thinks that players need to be coddled, but at the same time I think that there's something to be said for the way that players are approached. And if you know that you have a team that hasn't got over the hump and hasn't been able to get it done, and that it's starting to really wear on them, again, it's tough because coaches aren't there to be cheerleaders, but positivity I think can be really important. And it feels like with Toronto, that positivity, they're not getting it externally, and they may not be seeing that in the room either. And again, it may be the way that it got edited together, but you combine it with what we're seeing here, and it draws a pretty big picture. So they're currently 2-4-1. I'm not panicked, but I understand that there's fans that are. There's already been a jersey thrown on the ice, which is whatever. Jerseys get thrown on the ice by numerous fans and teams, and then you look at which jersey it is, and you go, all right. Is it just a replica? Is it an old Reebok replica? They may have just brought that to the game, because there's always that cynical part of me that goes, did they do this just because they knew it would get on TV, or are they actually that upset? And to me, I don't think they're actually that upset, because again, I'm a cynic, so I'm figuring they do that to get on TV, right? Look, that's my jersey. I threw that on the ice. They took pictures. So the current top three in the Atlantic, it illustrates why I don't think there's a reason to panic yet. Florida's number one, absolutely playing great. Buffalo's playing really well. They're playing over their heads. They're 4-1-1. At some point, Buffalo, that bubble's gonna burst. But it's fun to watch right now, right? Detroit has had a good start. Of course, the Boston Bruins are 3-1. They're not in the top three right now, but likely will be. So that means that you have Florida, Buffalo, and Boston in the top three in all likelihood, right? So then you got Montreal, who started 1-5. It's been a disaster for them. They're trying to recover from that. Ottawa's 2-4, and they look to be fading. Ottawa looks like they're fading right out of the playoff race potentially early in the year. And Tampa Bay 2-3-1. They've lost a lot of players, and at some point, Tampa Bay's playing tonight. If they lose tonight, sure, I can take a look at them tomorrow. But honestly, I think with Tampa, it's going to be look at all the players they lost from last year. This is how this works. Combined with having such a short turnaround time between winning the Stanley Cup and starting to play again, and all the bumps and bruises you're going to get along the way. So for Toronto, the numbers are pretty ugly. 1.86 goals for per game played. That's 29th in the National Hockey League. Goals against, 3.29 goals against per game played. That's 21st. Their power play, 13.6%. That's 26th. Their penalty kill is top 10, 87.5%. That's 8th. Their shots per game, 33.6 shots per game. So they're 12th there. Shots against per game, 30.3 shots against per game. They're 20th in that total. So it isn't that bad when you look at those numbers, but it's bad, right? So, and again, it's early. The goals for again, I keep thinking, well, that'll pick up. That'll pick up because it kind of has to when you look at the players involved. Interestingly enough, they're very good at faceoffs. They're third in faceoff percentage in the league at 55.6%. So how did we get here? They won their first game against Montreal 2-1. Nylander scoring the winner at 106 of the third. Then they lost 3-2 against the Ottawa Senators. They were down 3-0 after 2. They almost came back in that one. Then they won the next one against Ottawa 3-1. They were up 2-0 at 8:06 of the first period. So things went pretty well there. Then they lose in overtime against the Rangers. Well, Shesterkin steals that one. It's a 2-1 loss. Panarin scores the OT winner at 3:48 of overtime. And so, past game 3, there isn't really any reason to feel upset or concerned. Then San Jose comes in and they lose 5-3. It was tied 1-1. It was tied 2-2. The empty net goal scored by Couture. So it's more like a 4-3 loss. So San Jose's had a good start. And really, that's what it comes down to. San Jose's had a good start, but that does leave them then, in kind of a rough situation where they're now 2-1. And then it gets worse with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's the low. Losing 7-1 against Pittsburgh. It was tied 1-1 after the first. It can't happen. That's a loss you just can't have. That's a game that they need to win. And it's not a situation either where it's necessarily what you would consider a trap game. And your trap game is the one where you're against a team that you could look at on paper and say, well, we're way better than they are. Take them lightly, or just be looking ahead to your next opponent and end up losing that game either due to a lack of focus, just a lack of structure, or just you're not taking it as seriously. But losing 7-1 to Pittsburgh, that's a wake-up call. Now, where the alarm comes in is last night against Carolina, they lose 4-0 or 4-1. They led 1-0 after the first. Carolina outplayed them in that first period, and then Carolina outplayed them from there. And I think the alarm that gets in there is they're getting outplayed a lot. And that's been the storyline through a lot of these games. Again, you could argue they outplayed the Rangers, and Shesterkin steals that game. But they're not getting these heroic moments from their forwards. And 1.86 goals per game, again, that's really low. It's 29th in the league. It's going to get better. It has to because of the talent on the team. Their leading scorer is William Nylander. 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points. But here's the thing. So part of the storyline with the Leafs, of course, is getting out of the first round and getting to a Stanley Cup and all of this that Leaf fans would love to see happen. And it's still a realm of possibility that does happen. But we've got to start looking at when these guys who people argue are overpaid or, well, they don't do much, when are their contracts due? Nylander's is due in 2024. That's ages off. Not really. It's 2 years after this season is finished. So if they're going to win with this core, they now have 2 years beyond this one where they can get it done before either of these players get raises, there's new contracts, or they get traded, or whatever you're going to do, but you've got 2 more years after this one, right? Spezza, 7 games, 3 goals, 1 assist, 4 points. I love Spezza. If he's your number one goal scorer, you're not getting enough goals. Bunting, 7 games, 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points. I don't think there's any argument. Bunting has been very good in Toronto. He's fit in. He's on pace for about 46, 47 points, and that's fantastic. 20-goal season would be great for him, but again, the problem is he should not be one of your top goal scorers, and right now he's one of 3 players who has 2 or more goals on the team, which is, after 7 games, not enough. Simmons, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points in 7 games, has the same totals exactly as John Tavares. You can't have that. Tavares' contract is up in 2025. So 3 more years for the Tavares contract after this one. Engvall, 1 goal and 2 assists in 7 games. Engvall's happy with that. Again, Tavares needs to be ahead of everybody who are ahead of him. I would argue even Nylander. Tavares should be getting more points than Spezza and Nylander, and we haven't seen that to this point. Riley, 3 assists for him in 7 games. Of course, Morgan Riley is a free agent next summer. His current cap hits $5 million. He's going to command more than that. Whether you believe he is or isn't worth that, when you look at some of the money that guys are getting right now, Riley is worth more than $5 million on the market. So Toronto may end up having to move on from Morgan Riley, and then the question becomes, who replaces Morgan Riley, which is the same question that they've been having to answer with other players that they've lost from last season. So Kerfoot, 1 goal and an assist in 7 games. I think has been okay, but again, 1 goal and an assist. They probably want more. Sandin, 2 assists in 7 games. He's one of their top scoring defensemen with 2 assists in 7 games. Kasha, 1 goal in 7 games. He is snake bit. Andre Kasha is absolutely snake bit all the time when it comes to goals. He gets the opportunities. He has all kinds of good looks, and either he's robbed or the puck goes wide. Austin Matthews, in the 4 games since his return, has 1 goal. Now, people will point out Matthews is getting opportunities. He's getting shots. He got the goal last night, and then I think it was the 3rd period before he got his 2nd shot. So Matthews had all those opportunities early. Now we're starting to see less opportunities with Matthews, and either it's the team's keying on him or we start to see the effect of the rest of the team on that player, right? Liljegren, 1 assist in 2 games that he's played. Dermott, 1 assist in the 6 games he's played. Marner, 1 assist in the 7 games he's played. So Matthews and Marner are the big ones. They're the ones that are going to be the biggest heat magnets on the team. Marner has not been good enough. Marner knows he hasn't been good enough. Marner does a really poor job of hiding his feelings at any given point in time, which is good. We need that in hockey. I like players who wear their heart on their sleeve. No one took it tougher that the Leafs lost in the first round than Marner, Matthews, and Campbell. So it's not a matter of not wanting it and feeling like they don't owe anybody. Marner's signed till 2025, Matthews till 2024. So for anybody who's thinking, well, is Matthews going to stay? This is where it gets tough because all of them are unrestricted free agents at the end, right? So for Matthews, there's going to be that conversation. There's going to be that conversation of, so Arizona's got a new building they want to put up in Tempe. They're going to want to sell a lot of tickets. Matthews would sell a lot of tickets. They're going to have all kinds of cap space. So even though Matthews seems perfectly fine in Toronto, he seems happy in Toronto, that conversation will be out there. And for Marner, the conversation, if his production doesn't start becoming more Marner-like, will be, what do? You're not buying him out. Or are you? Like, what's going to happen with Marner at this point? If it's a really bad year, do they buy him out, or do they try to find a trade partner? And how does that work if he's not producing? And if you feel like Marner's going to bounce back and be a first-line forward somewhere else, what kind of value do you put on Marner? And then you have Muzzin, 1 assist in 7 games. Muzzin's not an offensive player anyways, but it highlights a problem here. None of their defensemen have a goal. None. No points. Amadio, 3 games. Hall, 6 games. Ritchie, 7 games. Nick Ritchie came in and has been on the first line a lot. Probably for too long. And so that's going to affect the production of the top 6. Camp, who I think is a good defensive forward, no points in 7 games, and TJ Brody, no points as well. So that's Brody and Hall, two of your top 6 defensemen, no points for them yet this year. Dermott has the 1 assist, Sandin 2 assists, Riley 3 assists, and there's Muzzin with the 1 helper. There's not enough production. In net, Jack Campbell 2-2-1 with a 915 save percentage. Mrazek, of course, gets hurt his first game, so he's 0-1 with an 885 save percentage. Hutchinson 0-1 with an 857 save percentage. Oh yeah, and Jack Campbell is a UFA next summer, and his cap hit's $1.65 million. But with the cap hit that Mrazek has, do you give Campbell $3-4 million? What do you give him? And for how long? So there's a lot of question marks here with Toronto. And really, we may be into a place right now with, because there is no cap space, they can't really add anybody. And of course, Nick Robertson gets hurt. I said Robinson, and then I said Robertson. So Nick Robertson gets hurt in the AHL, and so where we are is the guy who might be able to parachute in and help them with this is not available to them. And so that adds a whole other conversation to be had. Now, the players who've left the Leafs and have been prominent, Zach Hyman, 5 games, 5 goals, 1 assist, 6 points. He is a huge part of the reason that the Edmonton Oilers are off to a great start. Zach Hyman has just fit right in. I don't think Zach Hyman, if he had stayed in Toronto, would have 5 goals and an assist. I don't think he would. That being said, he would have more than the 0 points Ritchie has. But Nick Ritchie is not Zach Hyman. And as a fan that's watched Ritchie throughout his career, the idea that Ritchie could be a first-line winger is not, that doesn't work. Shouldn't be on the 4th line either, but, 3rd line's probably your best spot for Ritchie. Hyman is the top 6 forward in the NHL. I understand why they didn't give him a no-trade clause. I understand why that all turned out the way it did, but it is part of the reason the Leafs are where they are. If they had signed Hyman to the contract he wanted, they would have had to lose something else off this roster, something big. So it doesn't necessarily mean the record's better. Foligno, 2 games, 1 assist in Boston, of course, dealing with injury. Foligno didn't play that long for Toronto, but they gave up a first to get him. So this is where that giving up first-round picks can come back and bite a team too, right? Because Toronto's a team that's at the cap. They need those young players coming in. And of course, Freddie Anderson's 5-0 in Carolina, 946 save percentage. To me, one of the really interesting parts of that all or nothing was Freddie Anderson kind of being pushed aside for Campbell, and then they don't really talk about Anderson for the rest of it much at all. I thought that was really interesting. And Freddie Anderson in Carolina, it's not like there's any real pressure on him, not compared to Toronto. So Anderson, part of his bounce back may be a team just says, here's your contract to go out there and just play hockey, and you don't have to worry about all the other stuff. There's always going to be a lot of pressure on players wearing the Toronto Maple Leafs jerseys. And whether that pressure is right or wrong, this is a team that has had first rounds that have been a problem. And to me, the idea of them being chokers, I was resistant to it. But the combination of losing against Columbus, a team that they should on paper have been able to beat in those 5 games. They got shut out in Game 5, of course. And then the loss of a 3-1 series lead against Montreal last year, which didn't look like that was going to happen, and then it did. And it really feels like a lot of it with Toronto is psychological. A lot of what we watch, and I think with Columbus, definitely with Boston, it's psychological. The interesting part is that you can trace back this psychological issue that the Toronto Maple Leafs have had to 2013, when they had that lead on Boston. Rightfully shouldn't have lost it, but they did. And it was a complete meltdown. And Toronto has got this reputation as a team that has those meltdowns. And of course, Boston, the last 3 times they've met them in the playoffs, very recent times too, each time you can kind of pinpoint where Toronto should have won that series. And it's the same in all 3 times they've faced Boston. There have been opportunities where they could have won those series, and they just didn't. Now, their upcoming schedule, tomorrow they're in Chicago. And yeah, if you're a Toronto fan, that's worrying. You've got a Chicago team that should be desperate. Now, you've also got a Chicago team that has a number of players right now that are in protocols. It is up to 5 players now, and it's pretty big names. You've got Taves and Kane in protocols, right? But again, they just lost to a Pittsburgh team 7-1 that didn't have Letang, didn't have Malkin, didn't have Carter, didn't have Crosby. So again, you can't assume anything. Then they're at home against Detroit on Hockey Night Canada on Saturday. They're at home against Vegas on Tuesday, and then that road trip, or homestand, I should say, rounds out with games against Tampa, Boston, and LA. Over those 6 games, they have to win 4. They kind of, in order to really get this going, I would say 4-1-1 in their next 6 would sort of dig them out of this. So they're not the only ones off to a slow start. As I said, Tampa's off to a slow start, Montreal's off to a slow start, and Buffalo will come down at least a bit. 4-1-1, they're not going to get over 100 points this year and end up with 15, 16 losses on the season. That's Buffalo's not going to do that. So there's still that opening there for them to move up. But are we going to see 3 teams in the Atlantic and 5 in the Metro make the playoffs? That's a possibility, and so you may have to be top 3 to make the playoffs if you're in the Atlantic. It's possible it's 4-4, but even then, you've got Florida looks pretty darn good. You got to think Tampa has to bounce back at some point. You've got the Montreal Canadiens may be able to bounce back, and of course, like I said, Boston at 3-1. Boston should be one of the top 3 teams. It's not going to be an easy road from here, but I still think Toronto can do it. But I think a lot of this is here. I really don't know how much of it is physical, how much of it is that they don't hit enough, they're not big enough. I don't know how much of it is that and how much of it is up here. Because Paul McLean said it. He said they've got their demons everywhere, and he talked about how it's just everywhere, and it feels like after that loss against Montreal that maybe it's trailed them into this season. But the best way to quiet that up is to start winning, and start winning tomorrow night in Chicago, and then come home and rattle off some wins in that homestand. Because it's a winnable homestand. Vegas right now looks very vulnerable. Detroit's unpredictable. Tampa Bay has been down. Boston to Toronto games are usually pretty darn good. And LA definitely looks like one that Toronto should be able to beat. But should be able to beat has been a problem. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.